I spent half of this year building the ultimate Steam machine, and now that it's done, I wouldn't recommend it. So about 6 months ago, I made a video where I bought a pretty good PC on Facebook Marketplace and made some small upgrades to it, and the whole goal was to make the ultimate Steam machine. You know, a PC that could live in my living room, that my wife would accept, that would run games really well on my TV and work great with the controller. And what I ended up with was definitely great for about 3 months. See, back then, the stuff I was playing on it were games like Forza Horizon 5, Elden Ring Night Rain, and Resident Evil 4, with some indies thrown in the mix for good measure. And like I mentioned a few seconds ago, this thing could run those games without breaking a sweat. As far as resolutions go, I could do 1440p comfortably. In some games, I could even push up to 4K. The presets I was using were mostly the high. I wasn't using upscalers like FSR or XeSS. And I lock every game at 60 FPS with SteamOS's built-in limiter, but if I wanted to, I could push it well above 100. My TV just doesn't support it. But then I tried 2 games that absolutely brought this PC to its knees. Borderlands 4 and Metal Gear Solid Delta. I think it's pretty inarguable that both of them came out underbaked, like they needed a little bit more time in the oven. They were incredibly demanding. Metal Gear Solid Delta had a 460 FPS limit, so it couldn't go beyond that, and then you couldn't cut it off to keep the game running consistently at 60 FPS. And in Borderlands 4, it would run great most of the time, but if I ever was at a high point of the map and looked out into a big valley, the frame rate would drop down to 50 FPS and stay there until I turned around and looked at the building I was standing in. I ran down here into the basement, did some Googling, and determined that the RX 5700 XT graphics card inside this PC just wasn't cutting it. So I did even more research and landed on the 9070 XT. Because at that point, a couple of months had gone by, I had saved up a little bit more money to spend on the PC, and you could finally get that graphics card for around MSRP. So I drove out to Micro Center, I bought the graphics card, I spent a whole afternoon installing it, and I got a little bit better FPS, specifically in Borderlands 4, but it still couldn't hold 60 if I was looking at a big valley. So I checked my phone to make sure Micro Center was still open. They were. I've made that mistake one too many times, and I drove out there and I went balls to the wall and got a 9800 X3D. Then I stayed up till 2 in the morning, wiped my SSD to install SteamOS instead of Bazzite, and realized that SteamOS didn't have the drivers for the 9070 XT yet, and I was frustrated. So in the morning, I switched back to Bazzite, I downloaded all my games, and finally I was in the clear. And right about then is when I started to hear rumors about the Steam machine from Valve. Obviously, I was pretty excited about it because I've been covering the Steam machine and SteamOS here on this channel for over 3 years at this point, and I've been begging Valve to do exactly what they were doing. So after I got through my news videos, I realized that SteamOS works on the 9070 XT now, and I started writing the ultimate Steam machine video I wanted to make 6 months ago. And about halfway through the first paragraph is when it hit me. I don't think the potential audience for the Steam machine really cares all that much about a person buying a bunch of PC parts, building a PC, and making what I was calling the ultimate Steam machine. And the reason for that is, yeah, the Steam machine is a lot weaker than the PC that's sitting under my TV upstairs, but the same person who's willing to drive out to Micro Center multiple times and shell out up to $2,000 on a really good Steam machine PC has most likely already done it, because I'm living proof of that. And honestly, I don't think that person is the main core target audience of this Kleenex sized PC that's made to live underneath your TV. And after a lot of thinking, while the person who's willing to spend a lot of money on a great PC might not be the target audience of the Steam machine, that doesn't mean it's not aimed at a lot of different people. I think at the center, there's really one type of person this thing is aimed at, and that's the person who wants a PC that they can fit under their TV and use on the couch with a controller and not need to keep a Bluetooth connected wireless keyboard and mouse combo that they got for 20 bucks on Amazon next to them at all times for when invariably they have to go to the desktop and change some setting. I also think it's for the person who doesn't find it exciting to go on PC Parts Picker and make a whole list of parts while definitely leaving the compatibility checker turned on. I've also made that mistake before, trying to figure out a perfect combination of parts that's going to get them the maximum performance for the budget that they've set for themselves, that they're inevitably going to go over, because yes, I've also done that as well. And I also think it's for people who watch this channel, people who are big fans of the Steam Deck, and it might be their only gaming PC, and they've found themselves in a situation where they really enjoy playing Steam games on a handheld, and they'd love to play them on a TV, even though they can do it docked, but they just want a little bit more power, like maybe up to 6 times the power that they already have in their Steam Deck. And that's one thing I really want to focus on in this video, is the Steam Deck to Steam machine pipeline, because I haven't really seen anybody talking about it, and I think it's really the secret sauce to what Valve is doing here with SteamOS OS, the Steam Machine, the Steam Deck, and even the Steam Frame. I'm sure you've heard this new buzzword floating around the industry called engagement. If you haven't, it's basically like all these companies caring more about competing with your time than competing for your money. They're competing for your time against Instagram Reels, they're competing for your time against TikTok, they're competing for your time against Netflix, and then underneath all of that, they're competing with each other to make sure that when you turn on a game console, you are playing games on their platform. So if you're a PS5 gamer, that's why Sony made the PS Portal, that's why they've been porting games to PC, because at the very least, if you're not playing on a PlayStation console, if you're playing a PlayStation 4 PC game and you're logged into the PlayStation Network, you've given them 70% of the revenue that it costs to buy that game on Steam, and you're also playing on their platform, unlocking trophies and growing their potential user base. Because who knows, if they pull back on single player games from PC, you might have been hooked by some of the ones that they've already ported, and you might be the kind of person who will buy a PS5 in addition to a gaming PC to throw under your TV and continue playing PlayStation games. And at the very least, if you're playing PlayStation games in general, that's keeping you away from games like Indiana Jones, Halo the Master Chief Collection, Halo Infinite, or anything Nintendo's putting out. Xbox is and has been ruthless in terms of trying to get engagement out of their customers. They invented Game Pass, which is like the Netflix of video games, where if you're subscribed to Game Pass Ultimate for $30 a month, you get every Xbox exclusive, which covers games from Bethesda and Activision and everyone else that they own day one, and you also get a whole bunch of third-party and indie games included in the mix as well. So their logic is the same as Netflix, right? Like they're going to make a whole bunch of stuff in a whole bunch of different genres and hope they cover every single type of person who's subscribed to Game Pass, so at least you're logged into the Xbox Live or Xbox Game Pass network, I don't know what they're calling it these days, spending time and potentially money on the Xbox platform. Like all these people who downloaded Forza Horizon 5 for free through Game Pass but wanted to play it early and upgraded it to the Ultimate Edition for an extra $30. They bought DLC for a game they don't own. And Nintendo's even starting to dip their toes into the water here with Nintendo Switch Online giving you a huge back catalog of different games from different consoles, because if you're not playing any Nintendo Switch 2 games because you played all 3 or 4 of them that have came out since this thing launched, you'll spend your time playing older games, and that's keeping you on Nintendo's platforms. The whole reason the Steam Deck exists is of course to keep you buying and playing games on Steam, but I don't think it's as much of a focus as people make it out to be, because Valve does not limit you in any way from installing any other storefront, to the point where even on the Steam Machine website, they encourage you to either install Windows, install the Heroic Games Launcher, do whatever the hell you want with it, because as they say, it's your PC. You can do what you want with it, unlike a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X or a Nintendo Switch 2. So on the surface, it does seem a little bit cynical, but when you read into what they're doing, it turns out that I think their only goal is really to just give people a way to play games and spend less money doing it, because unlike those other people, they don't charge you for online access, which is a huge boon. And because they're directly competing with Xbox and Microsoft and Windows right now, Xbox's biggest rumor coming out of the next gen watch is that they're going to take away forced payment for online services. So that's competition with Valve directly helping Xbox players. So it's good overall. Valve is beating everyone else at the game they're playing without really even playing it, because the way they do things is how they've always done them. The reason Steam is so big and so well liked by most people on the PC ecosystem is because it's just a really damn good product, and they have a lot of leeway to screw up, mainly because a few years ago, well, more than a few years ago, they launched a collection called the Orange Box, which included Half-Life 2, its 2 DLC episodes, Team Fortress 2, and Portal. I still remember back in the day my friends complaining that they already owned Half-Life 2 and they were paying $50 to get a second copy, and it's like, you're paying $50 for more than 3 games. I think it's okay if you get a second copy of one of them. You're still getting a deal at the end of the day. When a private company like Valve goes this far out of their way to not only make a service really good with Steam, but also an operating system really good with SteamOS, and then hardware that's really good with the Steam Deck, people are going to kind of fall in love with it and reject better options. There's the Lenovo Legion Go with the Z1 Extreme, and because Valve didn't make it, people aren't really adopting it. There's the Legion Go 2, the Ally X, there's the Xbox Ally. There's so many different PC handhelds out there that are more expensive and run games better, but people are fine playing on what a lot of people in the gaming industry call a horribly inferior hardware with the Steam Deck, and I think that's going to continue with the Steam Machine because everything at the center is made with good intentions. Another huge reason I think the Steam Machine is going to succeed with the Steam Deck crowd is because because Valve really took their time and understand aesthetics matter. I got pretty lucky with my wife. She's awesome. She's letting me keep my big Bazzite PC underneath the TV, but you know, I have a Fractal North case that has wood grain on the front and it does blend in with the furniture in there, and she says it looks fine, but I know in her heart of hearts she probably would prefer a much smaller box sitting underneath our TV next to the entertainment center. But I think all of our cool wives would be much happier if the box underneath our TV had one LED light on it instead of maybe 5 or 6 that blast out the side of it, and I think they'd also be a lot happier if you chose a box that, you know, is the size of a Kleenex box and not the size of what is my PC even the size of? Like, I don't know, a Costco sized cereal box. You know how big a PC is, like a general regular PC that people would build. And they also split the difference with appeasing wives and gamers. It's really cool. You know, you can change the faceplate and you can make your own, so you could put any game's art on it, or you could keep it a black little obelisk with a cool LED light bar, or you could just hide it away and not even see it and make sure you run the HDMI and power cords directly through your wall and make sure there's correct ventilation so it doesn't overheat. But I don't think it's going to overheat since like 60% of its footprint is cooling. I know there's already PCs out there at that form factor that might even have better parts than the Steam Machine, but I'd also guess that they're going to be more expensive and they won't come pre-equipped with one of the greatest gaming operating systems ever that's going to get boutique updates made specifically for it based on how people in Valve are using it that are only going to get even better once we all get our hands on it and start talking about it on video or in the comments of videos, because that's exactly what happened with the Steam Deck. But speaking of more powerful hardware, a lot of people are kind of stuck on the specs of the Steam Machine, and I'll be the first to admit that the one thing that kind of stands out to me, well, two things that really stand out to me when it comes to the performance spec of this thing, is the fact that it uses a mobile GPU. I am a laptop gamer. I have a 4090 equipped Razer Blade that I love, but 4090 does not equal 4090. It's more like a 4070 because, you know, it's a shrunk down laptop GPU, and that's what they're using inside the Steam Machine. Not a 4090 level one, but a mobile GPU nonetheless. And the other thing that kind of stands out to me is that it only has 8 gigabytes of VRAM. I know we're going to be able to play games that need more VRAM. They're going to figure it out. We might just have to use lower texture settings or crank FSR or whatever, and it'll work just fine. I just can't imagine it would have not benefited them to at least go for 10 or 12 gigabytes, because even if you have just a little bit of overhead, that can go a really long way. But all of that kind of melts away when you remember that this thing, again, is the size of a Kleenex box. I don't think it can be overstated how cool that is. And also, its core audience that it's being marketed to, the people who are definitely 100%, no matter the price, going to show up for it at launch, they're already used to using inferior hardware. You know, they're used to the criticism from all the Nintendo Switch 2 gamers, or used to the criticism from people with better handhelds performance-wise, like the ROG Xbox Ally X. And the cool thing is, none of us really give a shit. We really enjoy finding settings that work on the Steam Deck because we love the Steam Deck, we love SteamOS, and we love the platform that Valve built. So if we're in that exact same scenario, but with a little bit more, you know, breathing room because we have 6 times the power, I think it's going to be just fine. And for all the people who are calling it dead in the water for its specs, because it's not going to compete directly with the PlayStation 5, I don't think anyone who wants to buy this thing was ever going to buy it instead of a PlayStation 5. If you've been on the PlayStation ecosystem for this entire generation or longer, going back to the PS4 gen, you already have potentially hundreds, if not thousands of games saved to your PlayStation account that you're not going to abandon to get a Steam library set up. And in that case, this thing is perfect for you because it's going to come in at a fairly low price point and make it an easy way to get into the Steam ecosystem. I mean, you could just start with Left 4 Dead 2 because it goes on sale for $1 all the time, and then you could get Half-Life 2, Episode 1 and 2, Team Fortress 2, you could play Counter-Strike 2 for free. I mean, even if you just buy it as an extra add-on console and start your Steam library completely from scratch, you're not like in a bad spot by any means at all. And I'd guess that as time goes on, you'll get in the same situation that I and so many other people are in, where if Sony releases an exclusive, you buy that on PS5. But for basically every other game in existence, you're going to start buying them on PC because you're going to really like using that operating system. I promise. I think this thing's going to be pretty big because, you know, over the past 3 years, there have been a few times where the Steam Deck makes it into the sports fan Twitter, of console gamers, and then they find their way to YouTube and either throw down the comments like, you know, this could have been a Google search, and it's like, yeah, why did you search for it on YouTube if you just wanted a Google answer? And then they start comparing specs in the comments and starting arguments, and that's not who this thing is for. Like, they were never going to buy it in the first place, and I think it would be foolish for Valve to try and capture them, so I'm glad that they're not. And for the people who it's made for, who are definitely going to show up and buy it, I mean, we're going to be able to get 1440p 60 with upscaling in the vast majority of games, and we might have to just crank it to FSR performance for Unreal Engine 5. And honestly, for the form factor, for the price, for the operating system, for the controller, for the potential VR headset add-on that you're going to get with it, because who's going to skip that? I think those trade-offs are 100% worth it for every other reason I already mentioned in this video. So that's why after spending half of 2025 building the ultimate Steam machine, I ultimately don't regret it. I love that PC. I'm going to continue using it, and as soon as SteamOS works great with 9070 XT, which I'm hopeful for happening soon because Valve specifically said they want people to install SteamOS on a build with that, I am also going to buy a Steam machine. I want it down here in my basement at my desk. I might even buy another one for my desk upstairs. Who knows? The form factor means you can put it anywhere, and I'm just absolutely obsessed with the hardware in the exact same way that I'm obsessed with the Steam Deck. I don't know if I'm going to like it as much as a Steam Deck because at the end of the day, I am a tried and true handheld gamer, but I mean, I can't skip this thing. It just looks that good because it's pulling all of my favorite features from the Steam Deck and putting them on a console. Well, a console-sized PC. But yeah, guys, that brings me to the end of this video. I just realized I didn't do a sub shout out or an intro at the beginning of this video. So how's it going, guys? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about Steam hardware. I hope you're having a great week playing a ton of video games. I built the ultimate Steam machine over 6 months and I don't recommend it. Subscribe, set your notifications to all. With the intro out of the way, let's end the video. As always, guys, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.